Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to the DigiSeminar of the Filipinska Hirpesamfund i Norge. And we are in collaboration with Likestillings og Diskriminering Sambudet today. By the way, I'm Lorraine of Team NIN of the Filipinska Hirpesamfund i Norge, or FHS, and TL of Team NIN Freshies. Together with me is also Amor, also a volunteer of FHS. For everyone's information, FHS is a non-government organization which provides the information drive and awareness to benefit and help the migrant groups in Norway, gathering necessary information they need. Today, we are going to have a very special guest who will join us shortly. He is a representative from Likestillings og Diskriminering Sambudet, and he will be presenting the crucial information regarding discrimination and equality in Norway. So today you have to get your pen and paper ready so you can jot down all the information that you might need together with Likestilling or Discriminering Sambudet. LDO will answer your inquiry and questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, just write it in the comment section.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Tia Lorraine, for that welcome and introduction. Good evening to all our viewers, and welcome to our live event. Tonight, we'll be talking about discrimination and equality in Norway. The aim of this DigiSeminar is to, know some of the important information when it comes to your equal rights here in Norway, and of course, how to prevent the discrimination. Kindly let us know which city or country you're coming from. So just put it on the comment and maybe we can, do a shout out later. Just leave a comment down below and let's make the comment section interactive. I think there's a lot of people right now waiting for this event. Well, particularly myself because I'm a newbie in Norway. So I would like really to, know this, what are my entitlements, what it is like in Norway when it comes to like treating people, the balance in the
Yeah.
society. So yeah, it's really very important for me. Joining us today is Mr. Villar from LDO. He will discuss more about our topic for today.
Yeah. Thanks, Amor. Yeah, like me, I'm a bit of interested on what the information's about or discussions we will be having about discrimination and equality here in Norway. And so a bit of information about our guest, Mr. Viljar Eidsvik, works as an advisor at the Norwegian Equality and Anti-Discrimination Ombud. He has several years of experience as a workshop holder and lecturer on equality, inclusion, and anti-discrimination work at the workplace. So let us welcome now Mr. Villar. Hi,
Hi
hi
everyone.
Villar.
Hi.
Hello,
So
good evening.
Thank you. So yeah, I have a presentation, so I'm gonna take you through a little bit about mainly the legal aspects of discrimination and harassment, and how to recognize discrimination in a legal sense. And then it's also important to remember that discrimination is a term that is used in a lot of ways and
Mhm.
a lot of aspects that might be kind of unjust, and maybe discrimination as well might not be discrimination in the legal sense. So but we're gonna get more into that. I don't know. Do you want me to say anything more before we start the presentation?
Yeah, please. Before we get to that, we'd like to know a little bit more about yourself. Like,
yeah,
what do you
Yeah,
represent in LDO and everything like that.
yeah. So I have been working at LDO since this spring, but before that, I've been working in different civil society organizations, and my field has been like in Aldio. I work within two different areas of discrimination. I work on LGBT rights, and I work on racial discrimination. I mainly work with public sector and work on how to make the public sector in Norway more available for different type of people, more kind of more inclusive. So my work is, I'm not a lawyer by profession. My field is within social science and pedagogy. So I mainly work on how like public sector can become more progressive.
Very interesting line of work.
Yeah.
It's actually a combination of both, like social science and being a lawyer
Yeah.
in one.
at the same time.
Something like, because you have to know both parts. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for giving us a quick information about yourself. So without further ado, we would like to give you the time to have more information about today's topic.
Yeah. Will I get the presentation on screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So should I put on present then? Okay. So that was what I was wondering. So yeah, as I said, I will give you a short introduction of how to recognize discrimination, and how to recognize discrimination in a legal sense when something happens that might be illegal or not according to the intentions of the law. And also I'm going to say a little bit about harassment and when that might or what the law says about harassment. So I think you can go over to slide number 5. Thank you. So this is the agenda for today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the ombud is, but also something called the tribunal, Likestillings- og diskrimineringsnemnda. And what is the difference between the ombud, Likestillings- og diskrimineringsombudet, and the tribunal, Diskrimineringsnemnda. And then we're gonna talk a bit about what discrimination is, and what it might look like. And then I have a case where we're gonna try to think a little bit on whether two different situations might be discrimination or not. So yeah, can you go to next slide? Yeah. So after this presentation, the objective is that you should know where you can go to get legal advice if you think that you might have experienced discrimination, or if you want advice on equality issues. And also that you should be able to recognize discrimination and know whether a situation might or might not be discrimination. Perfect. So the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Ombud, where I work, the actual person that is the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Ombud is called Björn Erik Thun, and I'm a member of his staff, kind of. So what we do is that we give free legal counseling on issues concerning discrimination and equality. So you can, as an individual, contact us to get free legal advising. We also advocate for equality. So we work, for example, politically to suggest different kind of laws or solutions that we think might or is necessary for achieving equality. We also are monitoring we report to the UN on 3 different international or UN conventions. Like a convention that goes the UN Convention on Racial Discrimination, the UN Women's Convention, and also the UN Convention that is concerning disability. We're based in Oslo. We're about 40 employees. And so we have limited resources on a lot of work. But one of the things we also do is that we try to have a close kind of connection with civil society organizations, particularly the ones that are organizing groups that we know are vulnerable for discrimination. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so then Diskrimineringsnemnda, the Anti-Discrimination Tribunal, they are the ones that are actually making determinations on whether a situation is discrimination or not, or a situation is harassment or not. So we are actually not deciding in a legal sense anything. We're just offering counseling and working with advocacy, and so we don't decide in the sense that the tribunal does. So if you experience discrimination, you can contact. I would recommend to contact us first, because we can talk you through the case and kind of give you advice on how to present the case for the tribunal. But it will be the Anti-Discrimination Tribunal that decides whether this situation is discriminatory. So you can go to next slide. In Norway, discrimination is illegal. But what do we mean when we say that discrimination is illegal? Next slide. So in the law, it says that discrimination is differential treatment that is unjustifiable, and that it is connected to one or more of the protected identities that is mentioned in the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Law. So if we first look on have a look at the term differential treatment. can take the next one. Yeah, you can skip even more. Yeah, so this is an example of differential treatment that might not, or that is not discrimination, at least based on the information that we have now. So these are, this is in Norwegian, but I'll explain the examples to you. Like one of the examples is a person that didn't get a job because she had tattoos. So most people would agree that that is not fair. That's not a fair treatment. You know, you treat people differently in this situation. But there were also some other identifiers on whether it's discrimination, and having a tattoo is not. It's not a protected identity in the law. It is unjust, and it is also not. It's unfair, and it's also not for any like justifiable reason that is happening. But it is not. It's not a protected identity. You can take the next slide. So what is protected identities according to the law is if you experience discrimination because you're a woman or a man, like discrimination based on gender. If you experience discrimination, like if you treated like worse, for example, because you're pregnant, or if you don't get a job because you're pregnant, that would be examples of discrimination based on pregnancy. Parental leave due to birth or adoption. Caregiver responsibilities, like for example, if your employer treat you in any unjust way because you have to pick up your children in the kindergarten, for example, that would be an example of that. Ethnicity, and with ethnicity in this context, it is mentioned in the law that it means both skin color, national origin, and language. Sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So, for example, with gender identity, you're not like being trans, for example, is not something you cannot discriminate against someone because they are transgender. That would be a typical example of discrimination based on gender identity. Gender expression would mean, for example, that say a man wants to wear nail polish or like skirts for work. It is not legal for the boss to say that that is not allowed if women are allowed to wear the same outfit, kind of. Age. You cannot not give someone a job because they're old or young. It has to be based on qualifications. Religion and also disability. These are, and also combinations of these as well, is specifically mentioned in the law. These are illegal to discriminate based on in all areas of society in Norway, while in employment situations, there are some other specific areas as well. Political views and union membership is not allowed to discriminate based on. You can take the next slide. Yeah, these are two examples. They're in it's screenshots from Norwegian newspapers. There's a man that doesn't get work because because the employers thinks he's too old, which is a typical example of discrimination. And also the other one is that there is a Polish man that got less paid because he was Polish. Yeah, next. So the two first examples was examples of direct discrimination, and direct discrimination means that you treat people differently, right? Which gives an unjust result. So there's also something called indirect discrimination, which means that you treat people equal, but it gets very different results because of, for example, ethnicity or religion or these identity categories that I talked you through. For example, the screenshot here in Norwegian is that a 25-year-old bus driver was not allowed to wear a turban at work. So this is the same rule for everyone. No one is allowed to wear a turban at work, regardless of your ethnicity and religion, but it's discrimination because this will affect some ethnicities and religious believers a lot worse. Because if you then are a Sikh and you're religiously kind of obliged to wear a turban, then it might be very difficult for you to be at, or you cannot have that job then if you're not allowed to wear turban. So this is an example of indirect discrimination, where equal treatment means that some groups are excluded. Another example of that could be, for example, if someone is in a wheelchair and you can only get into the office via stairs, then that office is not wheelchair accessible, and everyone that is, even though everyone is treated equally, the result is a lot worse for a person in a wheelchair. So it means that it's indirect discrimination. Take the next one. We can skip that since it's, yeah. So, and then there's another factor that I haven't talked about yet. The factor that for it to be discrimination, it has to be unjustifiable. So we'll have a look on what that means in a legal sense. The next one. So, for example, there can be reasons why things that are unequal treatment and is also based on one of the protected identities can be justifiable. For example, if you're going to fly a plane, for it to be safe for all the passengers and yourself, you need to, for example, be able to speak the language of communication where it happens. Like the language of communication, you need to be fluent in that for it to be safe, right? Also, you need to be able to have a good sight. So that would be like normally it could be discrimination based on abilities, but if you can't see properly, then it's not safe to fly the flight, you know? So that's examples of justifiable reasons why you kind of get exceptions then from the law, because there are other justifiable reasons. Yes. Next one. So for it to be an exception, it needs to have an objective purpose, and it has to be necessary for it to achieve this purpose. Like, for example, with flying the flight. It also has to be it has to be proportional. So there needs to be kind of a balance between the purpose and how it negatively affects the person that is being discriminated against, kind of, or that is treated unjust. And it in employment situation, it has to kind of have a significance for the actual performance of the work, which would be the case in the flying situation, for example, with the pilot. You can take the next one. So there is kind of, yeah, you can take so that I get all three of them. Just click a little bit forward. Thank you. So to recognize discrimination, there's like a 1, 2, 3 step. There needs to be a differential treatment. Then the differential treatment needs to be based on one of the protected identities in the law. For example, gender, race and ethnicity, etc., etc. And then is it a part of the legal exceptions? So if you can say yes to differential treatment, yes to protected identity, and then no, it's not a legal reason for exception, then the situation is discriminatory according to the law, and it would be an illegal situation. Next one. So then we have harassment as well. So harassment, when I talk about harassment, it means acts, omissions, or statements that have the purpose or effect of being offensive, frightening, hostile, degrading, or humiliating. You can take the next one. And then back, yeah. We divide harassment into 2 different types of harassment. The first one is the harassment that is based on identity, the protected identities in some way. If someone is harassed because of their gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, abilities, etc., etc. Another form of harassment that is specifically mentioned in the law is sexual harassment, which is any form of unwanted sexual attention that has the purpose or effect of being offensive, frightening, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or troublesome. And it's important to notice the purpose or effect part, because it doesn't really matter what the intentions were, so if someone is, for example, trying to be flirty in a clumsy way, and someone else is kind of signalizing that I don't want you to behave like this. This is creepy. And then the person doesn't really catch that and continue, then that is also sexual harassment, although it might not be intended from the person that did it, right? So the way the law is kind of shaped is very much that if the person is experiencing it as offensive or frightening, etc., then it would be within the definition of sexual harassment. You can take the next one. Now I've been talking a bit through what it looks like in the law. And now I'm going to say a little bit about what the social or societal effects of discrimination is. So discrimination, if you are either in just a one-time situation or continuously in some way treated worse because you are of a certain identity or category, it might affect both your psychological health and psychological well-being, but also your physical health in a negative way. It might affect your self-view. It might hinder your self-development. It might hinder you to participate in society. And this we know from research that there's a very close connection between experiencing discrimination and having a poorer mental health than the average population. We know this, for example, on research on Sami people, the indigenous population in Norway, that there is a link between Sami people that experience discrimination and poorer mental health or mental health issues. So on a societal level, discrimination makes a lot of people not being able to participate in society and to kind of meet their full potentials in work life and in other aspects of societal life. So this is why discrimination is both an individual problem for people experiencing it, but also a societal problem that kind of makes society as a whole not kind of fill its full potential. You can take the next slide. Yeah, can I get the next slide? Yay. So in the law, the equality and anti-discrimination law has an ambition of kind of being a progressive law that makes different aspects of society actually work towards equality. So this means that the law has an ambition, that a part of the law is that workspaces, both in public and private sector, should kind of discover the different barriers that happens for people based on their identities and categories. This is societal barriers. This is not barriers that happens because you belong to a certain identity. Say that this is not a barrier that happens because you are a woman. This is a barrier that or because you are a Filipino woman, or because you're a Filipino woman in a wheelchair. This is barriers. Discrimination are barriers that happens because society made them. And when society make them, then society can also prevent them from being created. So this is a part of the ambition in the law. So equality in the law means equal status, equal opportunities, and equal rights. And this also presupposes that you actually have the access of these rights, that you're actually accommodated so that you get your you are able to kind of meet your full potential. Okay, we can take the next slide. Yeah, now I had planned a case, but I'm thinking that maybe this is a good time for questions, and then we can take the case if we have time. Does that sound like an okay idea?
I think maybe we could ask some questions from our viewers if they have some questions right now. Since Amor is not here, so okay, so we have a question from Seth Marianne. It says, how does media portrayal and representation contribute to challenging or maintaining stereotypes that lead to discrimination?
That's a very good question. So there's different kind of aspects in that question, because I mean it's definitely correct that stereotypes kind of leads us to thinking in a reductive way when it comes to groups. It makes us assume a lot of things on a group level, which next step will lead to discrimination, right? And media is a lot of things. So and I'm not working with media, so I don't have like a full kind of full knowledge on how media representation actually is, but there has been a lot of previous research, for example, on how commercials are particularly bad when it comes to gender stereotyping. That commercials are very often examples of how are you going to sell this product? It's about cleaning. Oh, we put a woman in there because only women clean, and then the result of that might be that um, there might be discrimination because women are just assumed to clean, maybe on a poorer salary or without payment, or it might be discrimination because people are assuming that men are not able to clean. So that would be an example on how media would kind of lead to discrimination. And then there's definitely a lot of media that is also challenging stereotypes. One example would be, I don't know if you know the Norwegian series Skam. It was a Norwegian youth series that was being screened like a few years ago that were recognized to kind of challenge a lot of stereotypes, both when it came to Muslim girls and also to gay boys, and so so media is kind of everything. Media does a lot of different things, and then there's another aspect of the question, which is representation. I think representation is very important because the more people, the more different people you put in from a specific group in, for example, a show, or as like kind of news representers, the more you get to see that there's a lot of individual differences in between that group, so then you, by a broader representation from a group, you will kind of automatically challenge the stereotypes that are being kind of assumed from within that group. So I think media representation is super important for there to kind of for you to get different ideas on people from a group. Yeah, that was a long answer. I hope I answered. Ooh, now I lost the light. Yeah, I'm a bit in the dark. It will soon be turned on, I think.
That's okay. But it's a really a good answer, regarding on the questions that was asked. We have another question from our sec. It says, to what extent do Norway's anti-discrimination laws and practices effectively counteract different types of bias?
I think it's a good question. I think the answer would be that the answer is a bit mixed, because on an individual level, sometimes it is difficult to actually, like, people that takes their like, there's a high barrier for people to take an individual case to the tribunal, so, and a lot of, like, first of all, for example, in a work situation, it might be very difficult to prove that you're being discriminated. For example, there are examples of people with foreign sounding names that has sent in a lot of job applications without getting interviews, and they might have a reason to suspect that the reason for that is that you have a foreign name, but it's very difficult to prove that each individual time you sent in an application, that was because of the name. So, but we do know from research that people with Norwegian sounding names are more likely to get job interviews. So we do know that discrimination happens in this field, but for each individual, very difficult to prove. So there's an issue of proving discrimination. You might also at your work get a feeling of, I feel like I get less opportunities at this work because that because I have a foreign accent, or because for some reason connected to discrimination. But no one has stated it explicitly, but I might have gotten hints, then it's also very difficult to prove. So there's often a high barrier of the discrimination tribunal stating that something is just discrimination. So on an individual level, it might be difficult. But it has a symbolic effect because it looks very bad for a workplace if they're actually getting a conviction against them in the tribunal. So it has a kind of a preventive effect. And then there's an aspect of the anti-discrimination law that are like all kind of workplaces have an obligation through the law to work actively for equality. And I think that might be one of the more kind of effective parts of the law, more of a societal level. So I think it's a complicated question to answer, because I think a lot of people have met a lot of frustrations with experiencing discrimination, but feeling that it takes a lot of resources to take an individual case to the tribunal. But it is also like it has kind of a progressive effect, like the law does help. But yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah. A follow-up question on that. If I feel like being discriminated against, what should I do?
Well, the first thing you can do is that you can contact the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Ombud, so my workplace. You can just call, and then you get to talk to either a lawyer or a person that has worked a lot on law within the field or with the problem that you're kind of concerned about. And it's no problem to have the conversations in English. If you need to have it in other languages, then that is possible, but more complicated. So then we might need some time to kind of prepare. And then what we can offer is that we can offer kind of legal advices on how this looks, but we can also kind of offer workplaces coursing on how things should be, and that is often a more effective way of actually making change, because a lot of discrimination situations happen because of lack of knowledge and not because of bad intentions. Some happens because of bad intentions as well. But a lot of employers, for example, does not know enough about their workers' rights. So in many cases, it's also possible to have kind of workshops for workplaces and so. So we can both offer individual advising, but also courses and trainings and so for workplaces.
I have a follow-up question to that, Bilyar. Discrimination is very subjective, just like beauty or harassment. So it's very hard to prove that when we go or when we ask you, when we call you and say our story, do you actually require some hard evidences or somebody told me this? So of course we did not record it, like we were not expecting that would be said to us. So
Mm.
there's no anything. So how would tribunal be able to help us without any of those?
Mm. Well, we don't, like, when you talk to us, we don't need any, like, we trust what people are saying, because we're
Mm,
also we're giving advices, and we don't do anything without the consent of the person contacting us. So for example, if someone contacts us and say that, okay, at my workplace, there's a problem with kind of people use racist slurs.
mm,
I don't want to bring it up to my boss. I'm not comfortable with that. But I know that other people also are uncomfortable about this. Then it is possible for us to, uh, for example, if people want that. Uh, it is possible for us to, for example, ask, well, do you want us to contact your workplace and say someone anonymously contacted us, and we want to kind of offer you a workshop or training. That is one example, and then we wouldn't kind of need any proof. But of course, if you're gonna bring a case into the discrimination or the anti-discrimination tribunal, then they
mm,
will need proof, because they make kind of convictions in a legal sense, and they cannot kind of convict a workplace for anything without actually having proof of something happening.
mm,
And that is more complicated, because then in many situations, if it's only based on something that was said, and maybe often when people harass you, they don't want witnesses, so you might not have a lot of witnesses that heard the
yeah.
same either, right?
Mm,
So then it might be a word against word situation. And very often
mm,
in the word against word situations, um, the tribunal is less likely to convict a workplace than
mm.
something is written, for example, because then it's easily documented. So when it comes to taking cases to the tribunal, then proof is definitely an issue.
Okay. Sorry, I have another question because it's very interesting. When you say discrimination, I think it also depends on where discrimination in at the workplace. So it also
Mm,
depends on the company, on their values, no, on their rules. So, for example, it's different when you work in a hotel. For someone like, for example, someone who has tattoos all over, so it would be different situation for him when he would like to apply in a hotel or in uh, versus in for example like shops. It will be treated differently. So what if I want to work in hotel and I was not allowed to, I mean, it was not accepted, my application was rejected because of that. And of course I'd feel bad and say like you're discriminating me, and then I ended up in the shop. So is there a discrimination that when I in the end I was able to get the job anyways?
well, if there was an individual case, and it also depends on, like, the discrimination has to be based on one of the protected identity categories, right? So, for example, if it's based on language, say, say that a person that only speaks a little bit Norwegian applies for a job, then in, for example, a hotel, depending on what you're doing at the hotel, the language requirement might not uh, be necessary. It might not be a part of the legal exception, because there might be a lot of international guests anyway. So like Norwegian might not be that central of a language. And also, if you can prove that there's many other people that doesn't speak very much Norwegian that are working at that hotel, then you can prove an unequal treatment, you know. Well, for example, if you're applying for a job in a Norwegian school, where as a teacher, where Norwegian is the language of instruction, and the students are kind of, they have the rights to have Norwegian as the language of instruction, you know, then that is a justifiable reason for discriminating based on language, because it affects the quality of the work and it also negatively affects the rights of the students. So it very much depends on what kind of jobs you are applying for. For example, with the language requirements. While, for example, I don't think there is any reasons why, like when it comes to discrimination based on skin color, I don't think you can think of any reasons that would ever be justifiable, for example. While when it comes to language, it's more complicated. It might also be more complicated when it comes to abilities, for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I answer your
Yeah,
question?
very. Yeah, it's just there's a very thin line that draws between the two. Yeah. Okay, I think the best way is just to really call you to enlighten us in case we get into that position, that situation. Yeah. Actually, speaking of which do we email? Do we call? You have the number, no? Which number and which link do we refer to?
Yeah.
I think, let's see. If you go to if you go back to my presentation and put up the last slide,
Okay, everything is there.
then there's our webpage and our email and our phone number.
Okay.
So if you go to the very last one.
We could probably check it out after,
Yeah,
maybe.
we'd probably share it
There,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, we can share it later.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So. So there you have it. Just write it down.
Yeah, okay. We'll do that. Thank you, Villar.
Yes.
Do you have to, or do you have more of the language requirements that you need to present, Villar?
Well, I had a case about language requirements, but I kind of explained it while I was talking in one of the examples. So, and so I think I went through it. I can yeah, the only thing in the end of the presentation, because I do have some slides that I haven't shown, but the only thing that I haven't talked about is the fact that the law has an extra strong protection when it comes to discrimination on pregnancy. And this is like one of the reasons because for that is that it is a very common problem, and it has been a very common problem that when women are pregnant, it's very difficult to change job, and it's very difficult to get a job if you are visibly pregnant. And there has been like a massive problem of discrimination through that period, and it has a negative effect on women as a group, when you're not kind of given the possibility for it to kind of looking for an English word, like kind of improve in the at the work in your work career during that period. Also, the right to kind of have adjustments made at your workplace when you have children has also an kind of extra strong protection. So it makes the barriers for the workplace to say no, this is a legal exception is very, very high on when it comes to pregnancy and childcare responsibilities. So even though it's, for example, even though it's quite clearly negative effect on the workplace that they have to, okay, they hire you, you're 6 months pregnant, you can work there for 3 months, then they have to get like a replacement for maybe up to a year, and then you come back. That doesn't matter, you know. So there is a very high barrier in the law of saying that there's a legal exception for discriminating, even though it's very unpractical for the workplace when people are pregnant. The only exceptions that are acceptable then is when it's dangerous for the woman or the fetus to do a work task. For example, like there are like if you work at a hospital, it might be specific, very specific work tasks that you cannot do when you're pregnant because it might be dangerous. So that would be a legal reason for discriminating on a specific work task. But that's, I think, yeah. And other than that, I think that I'm through the presentation then. Hey. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So there we have it. Thank you, Viljar, for that very thorough discussion on equality and discrimination here in Norway. I think at this point, can we check if we have more questions? Amor, do you have more questions also?
No, I think that mine was the last.
Oh, we have one more question here. So it says from Sec Marian, how about discrimination based on an individual's criminal record? Is it fully addressed by anti-discrimination laws?
It is not addressed by the anti-discrimination laws. So there is no protection in the anti-discrimination law on criminal record. There might be, there might be protection through other laws. For example, the arbeidsmiljøloven, like the work environment law. I don't know the English name for it, but let's call it the work environment law, has a broader understanding of discrimination, but also also a more general protection of like labor rights. So it might be, for example, or in that law, having a criminal record is not a valid reason for firing anyone. Unless the criminal record makes you unable to do your work in a safe way. For example, if you work in a kindergarten and it turns out that your criminal record includes violence against children, for example, that would be, or sexual abuse of children, that would be a relevant reason. But a criminal record in itself, you will have like a legal protection against that being used against you as an employee. But in the equality and discrimination law, no, there is no protection.
There's another follow-up question here. It says, you have talked about youth earlier. Are there any particular challenges faced by youth who belong to marginalized communities?
Many. I think, well, an issue that we have been working a lot with in the Ombud is racial profiling by the police based on skin color, which is a quite big problem in Norway. That if you have ethnic minority background, you are more likely to be stopped by the police, and some ethnic groups are a lot more likely to be stopped by the police, like youth, particularly like young boys with African origin, are very much more likely to be stopped by the police than white or like Norwegian white boys. So this is something that, and it is, it becomes like it affects the trust to the police if you're stopped all the time, and it becomes like a psychological kind of it becomes lacking the English word. It becomes an issue for the people that are stopped all the time. It affects your freedom of like where you feel safe and how you relate to the police. So, but I mean, there's a lot of issues when it comes to discrimination. For example, schooling. We do know that some groups feel more kind of feel marginalized in the Norwegian school society, for example. Like Norway doesn't have there's a lot of like the school is doing a lot of work to be inclusive and to adjust to a lot of different groups and situations and individuals, but like it is an issue that some groups does not have a kind of schooling that is made for them, you know. Um, I mean, yeah, there's it could be many things. It's easiest to kind of remember the things that we are kind of currently working with, and ethnic profiling is kind of high up on the agenda at my workplace. But it could also be, for example, we do know, for example, that stereotypes affect the healthcare system and how good healthcare different groups get. So there's a lot of like stereotypes negatively affecting healthcare in Norway. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay, so do we have any more questions? For now, I think there's no more questions. So thank you, Villar, for, of course, taking your time for giving us your insights and advice on equality and discrimination. It has really been an incredibly helpful for us, and yeah, especially for us newbies here in Norway.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was nice to get to know you a little bit, at least.
Thank you so much, Bilyar, for your time. Of course, I know it's already almost dinner time. Yeah, it's an honor to collaborate with you in this program. And I think we need longer time for this because this is very interesting as it is very wide topic. Yeah, there's a lot under the sun that we can talk about and we can just go on and on. But yeah, we really thank you for the time. Keep safe always and hope to do this again next time. Maybe you can schedule another one. Yeah.
And
And
probably you might want to invite also our viewers on as how to we can reach you again.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to talk to the ombud about equality issues or discrimination, harassment, racism, yeah, and then you can call or you can email us at post@ldo.no or call us at 23 15 73 00. Thank you for joining me today, or us today. It was well, I don't know. I can't see the people that I'm talking to, but it's nice to get this platform and to get to talk to you anyway,
yes.
even though I can't see you.
So there you go. I hope our audience were able to get some information, insights, and were enlightened about this topic. Thank you very much again. Yeah, guys. So to reiterate, we are the FHS, not the members of LDO. This program is part of the integration and voluntary activities of our organization, and our purpose is primarily aimed at Filipinos and other minority groups living in Norway and Filipinos in the Philippines, of course. For those who missed this live program, don't worry, you can replay actually in our official Facebook page at fhs.org.no and watch it on our YouTube channel as well, the Filipino Helping Society in Norway. Visit our website to www.fhsnorge.org for more updates and other information drives and projects and to know more about our organization. We also want to promote the team Newbie in Norway's activities and programs, Snack Cafe, our monthly DigiSeminar, which just happened now, and tips to newbies in Norway, and many more. We warmly welcome our new set of volunteers too. Yeah, Lorraine?
Yeah, and if you are passionate to help and want to utilize your skills, competence, and talents in serving others, please be one of us and be part of our community. You can register as a member and volunteer for free through our website. There are several benefits for all FHS members and volunteers. Again, visit our website at www.fhsnorge.org. On behalf of the Filipinska Hilpesamfund in Norge, FHS, I would like to first thank the great people who put a lot of effort in preparing for this program, the FHS Newbie in Norway team, TL Kashmir for technical, Sec Mary Ann for script and project leader, and my co-host especially Amor. I would also like to thank you all for watching the program and making it as productive as possible. Lastly, to Villar of LDO, thank you so much for your time. Again, this has been Lorraine. And
This is Amor, wishing everyone a safe, calm, and cozy Thursday evening. Thank you.
have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.